I'm going to hit you with a statement. I want to get your thoughts.
Okay.
Copy is the holy grail of remarkable marketing.
I couldn't, you know what? It's so funny that you're putting it like that because I even think I always say that copy isn't the icing on the cake. It is the cake. It's the butter. It's the gluten-free flour if you're gluten-free like me. It's the eggs. It's how all the things you want to have happen in your business start to come to life. If you want to call in the right people, you want to sell, you have to sell in a way that feels good, right? If you don't have buyers, you don't have a business, right? You don't have a way to like call, and then you have to have a way to call those people in. We know that as lead generation or audience growth.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way to call the right people in to sell to or to create for and have them come in and be like, oh gosh, I want to know more about this. I'm into this. The way that those things happen is understanding what to say and how to say it in a way that calls in the right people to sell to. And so that's why I say it's the icing. It is the cake. And like you just said, it is the holy grail of marketing. It is.
I feel like it's one of those pieces of marketing. And for our content creators who are watching or listening, it's the thing that gets skipped over, Marisa. Like it's one of those things where I'm like, people just, when it comes to messaging, I help people with podcast launches and the brand gets overlooked. It's like, I want to start the thing without really understanding the messaging, which is the reason why I wanted to invite you on the show. So I'm really excited to dig into this copy or to this topic of copy and messaging. Yeah. Let's take it back a little bit. You have a background, you were a Harvard trained actor. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm all about finding the connections, like the bridging gaps between the past and to what you're doing in the future. Curious to know the influences of your acting experiences to your approach to copywriting.
They go hand in hand. So when I was first writing, I was doing it as a side job. When you're an actor, you have 50 other jobs that you're doing. I was a cocktail waitress. I was a nanny. I worked for a doctor's office. And I had a really good friend of mine who was a parenting coach and kind of had this practice, a practice where she was supporting parents with their kids. And she was in this, and you have to remember, this is like 2013. In the online space, it was a little bit like the Wild West a bit. Like I had never heard, she was in this mastermind with these other online business owners and creators. And I remember her saying, oh, these people need help like writing. And I think you would be good at it. And I had no clue what I was doing, but I thought, oh gosh, if it gives me the opportunity, if I'm on set, if I'm auditioning, like I can do it on my own time. Let me figure this out. So I remember the very first job I took, I had no idea what it was. I asked them, oh yeah, I can do that. Well, could you send me a sample of something that you like? The person told me, oh, you're going to write a JV packet. I had no clue what that was. And I said, yeah, sure. Just like send me an example of something you like total improv actor. I was like, so she sent me a sample and I realized it was, which I now know is a joint venture. It's an affiliate packet. Like she was going to be, selling something for somebody else. And that's how I learned. In some projects I hit out of the park, other projects I kind of, failed forward sometimes. And to answer your question, the connection was what I think started to make me a pretty great copywriter off the bat, even though I didn't know much, was I quickly figured out, well, this is like being in a scene. This is like acting. This is like being in a scene. So if I'm writing an email or helping them write a series of sales emails, I understand that my scene partner is the reader, is the person that's reading this or experiencing this piece of copy. They're my scene partner. Okay, so what do I want them to get out? What do I want to get from them? Just in the same way that my teachers at Harvard would have us get up on stage and say, okay, Oziel and I are in a scene together. Okay, what do I want to get from you in this scene? What's my objective? How do I want to make you feel? And what are the tactics I'm going to do within our scene together to do that? And I realized it's the same. It is the same. Writing an email, writing a sales page is just like being in a scene, and making the script then is you making the case, and the copy is you kind of making the case for that. So there's such connections. And now, as the leader of my own copy community, now called the Copy Confidence Society, which we just came off of our 13th launch of it. So much of thank you. So much of the frameworks and things that I teach come from my time as an actor. And I think it's still the principles of copywriting. I haven't made something new. The principles of copywriting are the principles of copywriting, but the frameworks that I've created, because I do this through the kind of like an actor's guide to copy, I find that people really understand it because it brings it down to a level that they're really intrigued by or interested or want to know how to do. So yeah, it's my time at Harvard and being an actor, I think has made me a really successful teacher and mentor of copy, helping people understand it in a way. And it has also made me a great marketer and understanding what I need to do, because actors, outside of a copy scope, just for a second, like when you have to market your own business, that's so scary. But you come from an actor where your whole life is just being rejected. You're like, oh, okay, I could do this. Yeah, let me do this. I need to do videos. Oh, I need to like do this. I need to reach out to people. That's your life as an actor. So I think I was primed in ways from being an actor to deal with the kind of roller coaster ride that it is to kind of start and get a business going.
You got chopped up for a bit. Can you hear me now? Are you clear?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. It's still a little bit choppy. Hold on one second. Like the last
Oh.
part, it was getting a little choppy. Hold on one second. Hold on, I'm not sure. Okay, now you're clear.
It's okay?
Keep going.
Okay, I'm here.
Mic check. Okay, now you're good. Yeah. Okay. You're good
Thumbs
now.
up from the...
Yeah.
Okay.
It started getting choppy towards the end.
Hmm.
Okay, we could do this. I could edit that out, or we can. Do you remember what the last part was that you said?
Yeah, I just don't know where it got choppy.
Oh yeah. You were saying something. You were chopping, and I totally, because it started getting real choppy towards like the middle of it, and I was trying to hold it, and then I was like,
well, I think what I could say, and maybe if it caught that
just jump
first
in.
part about, me, I can answer the question again.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. You want to ask me again?
Yeah, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure everything's good. Okay. So you have a background as a Harvard trained actor and then going into copywriting. So I'm always curious about finding the connecting bridges that bring you from the past to the future. I'm curious to know how your acting experience shaped the way you approach copywriting.
Yes, so much. They're so linked. So when you're an actor, I always joke I had like 50 jobs. I was a cocktail waitress at a rooftop bar, as a nanny. I worked for a doctor's office, and I had a really good friend named Diana who was a parenting coach. And at the time, this is like 2013. So if you're in the online space, it's still kind of the Wild West. Like people were having these online businesses. I'm like, what is this? And she was in this mastermind with other people. Like someone was a health coach and someone was helping people get PR and stuff. And anyways, they needed help writing for their business. And she thought I would be good at it, even though I had no idea what it was, no clue. But I thought, oh, okay, if I can kind of make my own schedule, I want to figure this out, if I can do this kind of as a side job. And I'll never forget my very first job. I had no idea what I was writing. The person was like, oh, could you write a JV packet? I had no clue what that was. I said, oh yeah, sure I can. Like as an actor, you just say, yes, and improv. Like, okay, yeah, I'll figure it out. I said, would you just send me a sample of something that you like? And when they sent it to me, I realized it was a JV, meaning joint venture. I now know as an affiliate package, she was selling something for somebody else. And some of those first jobs I would hit out of the park. Other jobs I would kind of fail my way forward. But to answer your question, what I think made me so great as a copywriter starting off, even though I didn't really have a background in it, was that I realized that writing a piece of copy is just like being in a scene with somebody. So if I'm writing a sales sequence for somebody and I'm writing an email, it's like, oh, my scene partner is the reader, is the person who's going to experience it. So just like when I was at Harvard and my teacher, Scott, we're getting up to do a scene, Oziel, we're in a scene together. Scott's going to ask us, okay, Oziel, what do you want to get from Marisa in this scene? What's your intention? Okay, what are the tactics you're going to use to make this happen in the scene? And that's the same thing that happens in emails, in a sales page, is okay, who is that person? Who is that character? So I got to understand my ideal client. Who is that person? Okay, what do I want to get from them? How do I want them to feel? And that's how I approach the writing. And that's how I teach people how to write, which I think now, now I'm the leader of my own copy community called the Copy Confidence Society. We just came off of our 13th launch of that. And I think what makes the community has the reputation that it has in helping people is because I really break this down as like an actor's guide to copy. I haven't rewritten the rules of copywriting. Those are tried and true. But being able to bring it through this lens that people can understand, like what it's like to be in a scene with somebody, this actor's guide to copy people really love. And then also being a marketer myself, right? So sometimes when people, you go to start a business, it's terrifying. But as an actor, your whole life is already terrifying. You're used to rejection. You're used to having to figure something out on the fly. And I think that really helped me when I was starting out to kind of get over that fear and do it because I had that acting background. So I would say my time at Harvard and being an actor is so critical to me being successful and the way that I support my people inside of the Copy Confidence Society, for sure.
I can hear it. I can also see it too. When I was going on your website, I saw like it was act 1, act 2. I'm like, oh, it's so brilliant. I'm like, acting background. And she also infuses that in her personal brand and the way you position your courses, your classes, et cetera. So I thought that was a really nice touch. So I knew there was a bit of influence, but I wanted to dig into that.
Thank you.
Another thing too, I was thinking, Marisa, is like even going deeper, like working in the hospitality industry, like all that
all
Think
that.
about it. Different scenes, right? It's service, it's messaging, it's really identifying different scenarios, but really understanding how to speak and deliver your message. If a person is intoxicated, or if this person is having
Yep.
fun, or they're having a bad day, everything is an aspect
Yeah.
that could be applied to creativity. And I think copy is really understanding the messaging and how you're going to approach,
Yeah, and
right? Start thinking about that.
understanding your buyers. So when
Mm,
I worked at a restaurant in Times Square for a really long time called the Brooklyn Diner, and I worked there. I'm talking in the center of Times Square. So like in the musical Rent, they're like
yeah.
center of the universe. Blah blah blah. And I always joke because I'm like they're like New York City in the song in Rent. They're like New York City, center of the universe. I'm like that's so true. Like literally 43rd and Broadway. And at that time, before Condé Nast moved to One World Trade, they were at 4 Times Square. So everybody from Condé Nast, all these big people in like the magazine industry, all that would eat at the diner like every day. And that is a lesson in your different buyers. Because I knew the
Mm.
table where I could go up and chit chat with them. And I knew the table where they knew there was like the editor of like Glamour. I can't remember. And it was like, I knew exactly his order, the thing. He wanted me to say hi, but we weren't going to have a deep convo. Like it's understanding those different buyers.
Yeah.
Like your buyers that don't need that much information, your other buyer that needs that personal connection with you. I'd have those tables where they're like, oh, Marisa, hey, how's it been going? There's those different buyers. And I think when you work in a restaurant, you start to anticipate and understand what people need in order for their dining experience to be a 10 out of 10, but it's not the same from table to table.
See, I just gave you that and you took it to the next level. So you see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I love where this is going. All right, all right, all right. So you worked with a lot of creatives in crafting their messaging. I'm curious to know, what does it look like for a content creator who's starting out, looking to capture their voice and their brand messaging? How does that look like in practice? How can we do that?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is this is a concept that I will say a lot of times to people in their businesses or when they're creating is that people will tend to actually focus on the copy in terms of, oh, I need like a really great hook, or I need
Mm-hmm.
for this reel or this piece of content that I'm putting out. And I got to use all these like the terms and it's got to be structured in this certain way. And I always say that before we even get to the copy, and I can give you all the copy tricks in the world and I have them, but the best copy cannot fix a muddied message. So you have to first have a very clear and specific message because people are making purchasing decisions or even where they're going to spend their time and attention on a content creator based on two things. And the number one thing is what you're talking about or what you're selling, something that I want or I need or I can clearly understand. And number two, are you the person that I want to learn it from? That's really important too. But the first aspect is they have to understand what your point of view is. You have to have a specific kind of point of view. And sometimes what
Mm-hmm.
I'll watch people do when they start out is it can just feel really general or there's nothing that makes it feel specific to them that hooks people in. So that's the first thing that we want to look at is what is that point of view? Like, who is this for? How are we hooking them in? The way that I teach it inside of the Copy Confidence Society is according to the Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Because I believe Ozil was like, I was not ready for the Ghostbusters to enter the chat,
Let's
but the
go.
Ghostbusters have entered the Greater Factor chat.
Let's
And the
go.
Ghostbusters have the most perfect messaging. You're not confused. You know who you're going to call. You know when you'd call them. There's even a song about it. Like not everybody is being haunted by, Slimer. But if you are, you know who you're going to call. You don't have to think about, oh, who am I going to go to? It's like, oh no, you're literally going to call the Ghostbusters. So the way that we teach it in the Copy Confidence Society is if you remember from the Ghostbusters, they wear those laser backpacks, and that's what they use
Uh-huh.
to fight the ghosts, called the Proton Pack.
Yep.
And that's what we use inside of the Copy Confidence Society, which is the Proton Pack messaging playbook. And we run through like 4 P's to a more specific message. So the P of person. Who is it? Who is that ideal person that you're speaking to? The P of person. The P of product. What is it that you're selling, or what is what is that? The P of purpose. What's the point of it? What's the result? And then the P, or what's the result you want them to get from it? And the P of perspective, which doesn't always go into the messaging itself, but there's usually something from your own lived experience
Yeah.
that informs the message in some way. So we have to take a peek at that. Now, not all 3 things, for example, you don't need to be somebody who, I support, moms who are struggling with headaches. Like you don't need all the P's to be so specific within an inch of their life. It's usually that one of the P's will rise to the top, but we need some specificity in one area there that's going to make you become, I always say for me, I want people to become a specialist in a sea of generalists because it's easier for people to find you, to know about you from an SEO standpoint, to know if there's something that people can, I always say, like, you kind of unlock the 3 R's. If there's a level of specialty that
Okay.
people will remember you, they'll rave about you, and they'll refer you. Those are the 3 R's. But if
Like
it's
that.
general and people don't know, now if they're sitting at a dinner with somebody and someone says, oh, I've been feeling such and such, and I need help with this. Somebody can go, oh my gosh, I know somebody who does that or creates content around that. I'll give you their handle or whatever. You can go check it out. But if you're all over the place, it's really hard for people to recommend you or refer you or talk about you.
What are your thoughts? And by the way, you drop game. After's big fan right here. Hello. See, it's all
Hello.
like
Who's your
I
favorite
love it.
Ghostbuster?
Well, oh man, of course. Bill Murray, of
Yeah,
course.
I don't know.
I mean,
Beckman. Yeah, that's a Beckman.
Exactly. That's my guy. That's my guy.
Yeah. Mine
Yeah,
is
he's my.
Egon.
Egon. Okay. Why?
I love a nerd. I love a sciencey. Like I love a nerd. I love the nerd in the room.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Because
Okay.
I'm already kind of I'm a Leo. You know what I mean? So I'm already kind of like big and bold and bombastic. So I don't need that other energy. So I kind of like the quieter, like, ooh, what's this smarty pants up to over here?
Makes sense. Did you like the remakes?
I really loved these ones now, like that Paul Rudd is in with the kids, where they're like the grandkids.
Not
I think
bad.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. Yeah.
There was one that I saw, the one he did with, who was it with the guy? Was it the Thor guy? There was one that I just did not like. I wasn't a big fan of.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Well,
yeah. No, I know what you mean. But I like I'm open to it. I think if it gets like the next generation to wanna, go back and watch Ghostbusters, I'm like, okay, let's keep it alive.
Yeah. We're talking Ghostbusters right here. We're nerds here. Okay. I get it. All right. So getting back to copy. All right. So messaging. All right. So, let me ask you this. So whenever you see this a lot online for creators and entrepreneurs who get out there and it's like, I help so-and-so, like even for me, like I help thought influencers grow their podcast smarter. Something like that. Yep. I've used that variation before. What are your thoughts on people I feel like it's becoming too predictable. Like, what can we do to spice it up? I'm curious to know your thoughts on how we position our personal brands when it comes to what we do through our messaging.
I have thoughts. You've come to the right place.
Ooh, let's go.
So when I was an actor, I was just talking about this the other night. We had to do this project, this accent. Actors are required to do all sorts of accents. And so how do you get yourself into the accent? So we did this project where we had to come up for different accents with what is called a kinesthetic trigger, a line of the character in that accent that can help you. Then the accent just starts to come more natural. You say that line over and over again, and that like gets you into the world of the play. You can also use a kinesthetic trigger. Like sometimes if you have a little bit of like stage fright or you're like even if there's not an accent involved, you can say a line of the character over and over again, like off stage, so that when you walk on stage, you're like more fully that character. You're like more fully present. It's called a kinesthetic trigger. Okay. So I teach people how to do this in the Copy Confidence Society. So they're not the person in the room starting with, hey, Oziel, can you tell us how you help people in the world? They're expecting you to say, I help so-and-so do so-and-so for what? There's nothing wrong with it. We always want to start there so we can get some clarity. But now from there, we can play with it. And this is where a kinesthetic trigger can help. So this is where we could use like a movie quote. You could use I'll give you an example in a second. You could use like a statistic. You could use, I did it in the beginning. You asked me about, hey, copywriting is the holy grail of marketing. And I gave you my kinesthetic trigger, which is this. People always say copy is the icing on the cake, but it isn't. It is the cake. It's the butter. It's the gluten-free flour. If you're gluten-free like me, it's the eggs. It's how everything you want to have happen in your business happens. And that's what we help people do. I help people craft their uncopyable message and the personality copy that supports it inside of my signature program called the Copy Confidence Society.
Okay.
So we come up with a kinesthetic trigger, right? So it could be like a line it could be a movie quote. It could be a statistic. It could be like, here's what I know to be true, and like saying something, right? So, and we can play and we can see which one feels more like you, so that when you're in a room, it's going to help you get into that, say it easier, and you're going to have people lean in because they're not expecting you to start that way. So it hooks people in a bit more.
So I'm even thinking, Marisa, like for me, even talking about how people struggle with visibility and brand awareness online. So starting there, right, with the problem. And
and quite quickly, right? So like, even if you had a statistic, which is to say like, hey, did you know that, right now I'm just making this up. Like, X amount of people that are about to start a podcast, but only X amount will actually get to that next step. And that's because of like this, whatever that might be, the answer. It's like, and that's why I help thought leaders and influencers grow their podcasts, like for more, whatever that is. But we start off like hooking them in with some sort of like statistic or what the problem is, but we summarize it because we don't want our messages to be like you know those people when they start talking in the thing and you're like, wait, are we gonna have time for everybody to talk? You know? Like,
I was at a
that's the
networking
thing.
event the other day, and that's basically like 90% of me.
Totally. So we got to keep it, so a lot of times in the copy confidence side, I joke with people. I say, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer is practice, practice, practice. So in the society, one of the things that we do is that we have these like messaging, we do breakout rooms where they're practicing the messaging so that you can get it into your body. But, something so that it still feels clear and succinct. And there's another concept of why I think people do that, but I can tell you why, or why people go on too long. But yeah, you could come up with a statistic. Then you could try another fun one. Maybe there is like a movie quote or something or a character. You could try different ones and see afterwards, where do you get more people kind of reaching out to you or saying, hey, Oziel, I want to know more about what you do. Like, what was the kinesthetic, kind of practice with a couple of them, depending on the room that you're in.
I've heard keep it concise, bright, fun, and done.
I love that. Keep it concise, bright, done, fun, and done.
Keep it concise, bright, fun, and done.
Done. I could not agree more. And that's what we're going for. That's it. And the reason why that is, Oziel, if this is helpful, if you're out there listening, is that very often we want to tell our whole thing in that message when someone asks us what we do. And that's actually not the job of the message. So the way that I'll talk about it, do you remember the old school Tootsie Pop commercial?
Yeah.
Where they ask the owl, how many licks does it take to get the center of a Tootsie Pop?
Yeah,
and
classic.
the owl goes, 1, 2, 3, crunch. It takes 3 licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. And in the same way, it takes 3 licks to get to the center of your messaging. But the problem is that people are trying to put everything into the first lick. And all the first lick is to get somebody to say to you, oh my gosh, Oziel, tell me more. I need this, or I know somebody who needs this. Then you can start talking more about your process, how you work. But when you see somebody in a networking thing going on and on and on, it's because they're trying to do all the licks. They're trying to get to this. And it's like, no, we just need the first lick. That's it.
And then we'll decide if we want to go.
And then we'll ask you more. We'll get to the second and the third lick. So I teach that to people. That's what's so funny in the Copy Confidence Society is people are walking around the internet like, oh, Marisa taught me the Ghostbusters concept and the 3 licks. I'm like, what do people think? Like, they're like, what is this crazy community?
That's where the creativity of bringing analogies that we can relate to and have truth, right? I mean, there's truth to that commercial, and there's truth to like even the Ghostbusters analogy of that. So I love that, of like specialization and really who you're going to call and the jingle. I mean, that's marketing. That's great and remarkable marketing. And that's all messaging. I love it. I love where you're going with this. I'm loving this. Okay. All right. So when it comes to messaging, all right, we got our messaging down. I love what you said about practicing, because I do feel, even myself, I'm guilty of this. And I know a lot of creators. You could tell the professional networkers from the ones that are just in there just to kind of just spitballing, right? It's all over the place and they're talking, word vomiting. And the other ones are really, the professionals are very concise. They say with confidence and clarity. So I love the idea of challenging creators out there who are watching or listening to practice. It's a craft. Copywriting is a craft, but really understanding, dialing in your messaging so you can speak it, not only write it, but speak it out to people where they actually understand what you do, right? So I love that you said that. Let's talk about like measuring. So so you got your messaging down, you put it out there. How do we know the effectiveness of whether or not that message is landing or not?
Yeah, it's a great question. And for everybody, it might be slightly different, but I think overall, what we're looking for is, are people following up with you out of clarity over that like one eyebrow raise? I can't ever do the one eyebrow raise.
I can't do that either.
And I always joke, I'm like, it's not just my
The Rock has that down. The Rock could do it.
I could never do it.
Shout out to Dwayne.
But are they following up out of curiosity? Like, hey, Oziel, I heard you talk about how you support podcasters. I'm needing that, or actually, no, I have a colleague who needs that. Can I connect you, or can I find out more so that you can get into like the other licks, the other like how you do it, how you work. So that's the first one. Are people curious? Are they reaching out in a networking when you're talking? Like, what's the kind of response that you're getting? And if your messaging is on your social media or on your website, we want to see, are people kind of, reaching out to you? Or, because that might not always happen depending on your niche, but I call it like the vortex of you. And they come to your website and they start kind of sticking around or just staying in your world a bit more. That's what we're looking. So that's why the messaging is so important, especially from an SEO aspect, that at the top of your website, it's really clear who you are. Someone's not confused when they get there. And so we can see this, right? We can look at the back end, we can see where people are coming in or where they fall off. If we're looking at emails, we go, okay, are people responding back to you? Are they opening? Are they clicking? What's your response rate? A lot of times people are looking at those typical metrics, but it's like Are people responding to you? Are you
That's right.
creating relationships with people?
Mm-hmm.
The great Anne Hanley, who's I think one of the greatest copy mentors ever. She talks about it's called like I'm going to mess it up, but that's one of her metrics is like it's called like an email. She has a fun way of saying it, but it's essentially a metric she made up, which is like how many people are actually responding back to my newsletter. Because that's a big metric. And that will let us know if the message or what it is starting to connect. And each niche can be a
Much
little
more
bit
important,
different.
right? Yeah, much more important than the
Much more
vanity metrics,
important.
right? I
Yeah.
think people go surface level, but as you said, how people are
Yeah.
engaging,
How people are
responding.
engaging, how people are responding, and also some niches, right? For example, I was just talking to somebody, I was just literally just having this conversation with a client of mine who is, she was a sex therapist, and now she coaches couples to have like a more connected, like rock solid sex life. So we understand that her social media, if we're trying to go off the vanity metric of like all of her comments, she's probably not going to have a lot of comments. Probably a lot of people aren't going to be out there typing with their thumbs, oh yeah, this is me. People don't want to be out there and say, yeah, my sex life could be better. So sometimes in her niche, that kind of engagement in the comments of her social is not something we would measure because her person is probably not out there. They're probably more lurking. So we want to see how many people are saving her posts and then how many people might be DMing her or reaching out to her,
I
not
love that.
necessarily the vanity of the comments in her niche specifically. So we always got to look at our niche too.
Nailed it. I love it. Love, love, love. One of the things that I discovered about you that I was like, oh, that's my gal, because you are very passionate about community building and in-person events. And you've hosted both in-person and virtual events. You have an online summit, the Copy Chat, right, which has made a big impact. And I'm curious to know, as an event organizer, as a community builder, what's one surprising thing that you've learned about using events like this to grow your brand and make an impact? What have you discovered?
I've discovered that the most important thing you could be investing in, and I'm even talking as a copywriter, the most important thing that you could be investing in more so than your copy, your messaging, anything is relationships is building relationships.
Community is currency.
Community is current. That's it. There's nothing more to say. Mic drop. That's it. So when people come to me and they're like obsessing over their social media or how often they should be posting or that, I'm like, you need to take that energy and turn it around into creating relationships and with complementary niches, with similar people who can remember you, rave about you, and refer you. Because that's going to move your business forward a heck of a lot faster. And that's what the Copy Chat did for me. By having my summit that I could bring out, we used to do it twice a year, we do it once a year. It would connect me, there's 9 other people, I'm the 10th, so there's 10 people, 9 people each time. And it just starts growing this web of people being like, hey, Marisa, I loved being on the Copy Chat. I'd love to have you come and teach copy inside of my community. Boom, that opportunity. And actors realize this, right? Like actors will always say work breeds work. You get one job and that job leads to the next, and that job leads to the next, and that job leads to the next. And that's how I've always viewed the Copy Chat is every opportunity I have had, me being here today with you, every opportunity I've ever had goes back to creating the Copy Chat and to putting relationships at the forefront of my business. So when you create events where people are coming together or those relationships, you're going to start to see your business move forward more so than you worrying about like what you're posting or how often you should be doing it. And so I always say invest in those relationships. And that was, I kind of knew that was going to be the case, but I could never have anticipated like what it's become. And then last year or a couple of years ago, I started adding this yearly kind of party that I do. It's not even people like, wait, do I have to buy a ticket? I'm like, no, I host it. I invite my favorite people in the online space to come in New York City. Like June, I call it like the spring soiree because it's like right before it becomes summer. And I invite people and I have them say, yeah, bring somebody that you want to bring. And we have so much fun. And I cannot tell you the opportunities. Last year, I was in a networking group and I invited people to come. And there was a girl I didn't know that well, but I knew she lived in New York City. So I said, hey, do you want to come? She shows up to the party. We saw each other instantly. I was like, I felt like I know this person my whole life. Who are you? We have to be friends. That's Gloria. And Gloria and Gloria and I, all of a sudden, next thing you know, she had me on her podcast. She was an affiliate for my program. I had her on the Copy Chat. We went to the MTV Video Music Awards together in September. And a month and a half ago, I get an email that says, hey, I'd love to connect you to Oziel. I think you'd be great to be on his podcast. And here I am. So this is the power of putting the investment in those relationships and events and ways that you can bring people together.
1,000%. And that's one of the things that I'm actually seeing a trend too, Marisa. I'm not sure if you've plugged in too much in the creator economy, but we're seeing a lot more content creators now embracing in-person events and are organizing meetups and in-person events. And a lot of them are doing live podcasts, which is exciting for me because I've been
So
doing this for a
cool.
while. And I do feel like there's an emergence of creators, of entrepreneurs that are saying, hey, let's meet together. And I think a lot of people stray away from that because they don't see the direct ROI in hosting an event, whether it's a meetup or whatnot. But now we're seeing, I mean, you're a testament. I'm a testament of when you host the party, it positions your brand on a whole different level. Number one, that's definitely like right out the gate.
Yep.
But also you're bringing in people who can meet and get connected. And it definitely leads to more opportunities and just great relationships. So I'm glad, and I was so happy to see that. So I'm glad that you're doing that.
Yeah, I love it so much. And it also, gives you ideas are sparked, like creativity. And you never know. It's like the first time I did, a friend of mine, Hillary, brought someone, her name was Pia. She came back the next year. She became an affiliate for us in the society. She's one of my top affiliates this year. And basically her raving about the program, like brought in people that basically like paid for my party last year. So we got to like think outside the box a bit when we think about, oh, what's the direct ROI? It's like, it will happen. You got to just think a little bit differently of how you're thinking about it a bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You give them an experience to talk about, and then they talk about it. Yeah. Bring in more people. Love it. Love, love, love. All right. I can go on and on and on and on and on about, okay. I have a few more questions.
Sure.
Because I'm really digging the vibe here. Let's talk about email marketing a bit. Let's switch it up. I actually recently interviewed not too long ago. It was Haley she was head of ConvertKit now, formerly, correct?
Now
formerly correct Kit, now Kit. Yeah.
They're like Prince.
Exactly. Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. I was like, Haley, what's up with the name? She's like, I know, it's just Kit. I'm like, all right, I dig it. But we're talking about email marketing and where it's evolving. Some people, there was an argument saying, email marketing is dead. It's all SMS and people are not really opening up emails anymore, and nobody's clicking on them or whatnot. It's spam. Give me your thoughts. Like, how important is email marketing dead? Where is it at in 2025 and moving forward? Talk to us.
Email marketing is like a classic, like leather jacket. It's not.
I'm loving your analogies, by the way. I'm like, keep talking. All right, let me be quiet.
It's not going out of style. It's not. If everything went away tomorrow and I only had my email list, okay, great. I can still, I can I'll make it happen, because there's an intimacy with email that, again, just like I said to you, my client Heather was the sex therapist, where we might not be seeing the comments on her social, but we're really trying to see what are the responses she's getting in her email. There's an intimacy with email that you can build, this kind of like very personal relationship with your readers. And there's so much you can do with email. You could just send them to your podcast. So it's like a little launch pad to the next thing. You can send them audio. You can have them do a survey. Like, there's so many opportunities for connection with email that, and it is I'm not the first person, drink every time someone tells you this, but, take a drink. It's something that is yours, where, the way social, like Facebook could go away tomorrow, and Instagram, I hope Instagram, and I love Instagram. I hope it doesn't go away tomorrow. I love it, but your email, it is yours. And there's so much that you can do with it. And it is the place that has made the biggest, I would say, the copy chat and my email list has been the biggest just driver in my own business.
Sales. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, as far as your products, because I'm going to speak on the new creator who wants to get started, wants to start building their email marketing campaigns. What's a good place to get started? A PDF, freebie? Like, what are some of the things that you feel, that you see that are currently working?
Yeah. So right now we are seeing the shift back to like join my newsletter.
Okay.
Or before, people would say, hey, no one's going to join your newsletter. You got to give them like a freebie or something. Like, nobody's signing up for someone's newsletter. But there has been this trend back to, or, kind of that if you have a kind of theme for, again, this goes back to your messaging. If your messaging is specific, you can kind of craft your newsletter around, around your specific messaging that could make people want to get those tips and ideas and stories around this particular topic. So, offering that the newsletter itself could be a really powerful freebie or lead magnet. But I still believe that that a freebie or a lead magnet, again, that isn't fluff though. I don't think anybody wants to open up some 50-page ebook or something that isn't, something that is really specific and useful. And if I will use myself as an example here, because I think, ours is the 50+ scroll stopping subject lines. It's not like the whole thing on all email marketing. It's just on subject lines. Simple.
Simple, and
And
that's
I'll have
something people
people,
want.
yeah, I was actually at a conference last year where 3 different people, I was like, is this real? What's happening? Where 3 different people came up to me and said, hey, I want to let you know, I use the 50 plus scroll stopping subject lines all the time when I'm doing my emails. I pull up a formula, I do it. I'm like, oh, this is really cool to hear. So you give people like one small thing that actually feels doable and actionable for them. And that can be really powerful. And then from there, they get your emails and all that. So if you are doing a lead magnet or a freebie, we want it just like the messaging, going back to a little bit more of that specificity, like one thing for them to bite off and chew that feels digestible for them. And then I would say also having a really rock solid welcome sequence. So if someone comes in through a lead magnet, a lot of times people are just like, oh, here's the lead magnet. And then it just goes right into the regular emails. But I think having like a nice welcome sequence that welcomes you to the party is, my writing mentor, Laura Belgray, she'll describe it as, you come into the party. It's like somebody takes your coat. They show you where the bar is, like where to get a drink. Similar. We want to welcome them in. Here's who I am. Here's how I can help you. In the society, we teach like a 4-part welcome sequence.
Yeah, we welcome all those dope metaphors that you're dropping today, man.
Yeah.
That's a great. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so keeping it simple, make it useful, and we're gonna make sure that we link that up in the show notes as well, Marisa.
Sure.
Because I think that's super awesome. I'm actually interested in that. That's
Yeah.
good. Missed that. All right. So this is good stuff. 2 questions before we land the plane. We got to talk about the big A word.
AI.
Come on, bring it in. See, look at that. I just set it up, and you were like,
Yeah.
boop. I got you. Okay. All right.
Artificial intelligence.
Yes, AI. All right. It's here. It's been here.
Here.
It's bigger than ever. The ChatGPT writers and everybody gravitating towards, AI to do the writing, to help them with writing. I'm seeing this even in the podcasting space where they're using AI more than ever. Talk to us. Copywriting versus AI. What are some of the what are your thoughts on people gravitating towards AI? And also the second follow-up would be, how can we make AI work for us and just not copy and paste, but really elevate our writing game to the next level?
Yeah.
Let's go.
I think anything that can help us be more efficient, I'm down for. So I always joke that when I wrote for my clients, I was like their AI. So they'd give me all the information of their ideal clients. And I remember, I would print it out and I would put it on the floor of my apartment and I would highlight like, okay, blue was for the pain points because that's the hottest part of the flame. You know what I mean? And yellow was I was the AI that now you can go to ChatGPT and okay, here's all my podcasting clients. Here's all my people. Tell me what the top 3 things are that they're needing support with. And in a second, ChatGPT is giving it to you. So anything that can help us with efficiency in that way, I'm down for it. But in terms of creativity, okay, I'm going to quote the great Britney Spears here. So in Britney Spears, Oziel's going to be like, Gloria, wait a second. You told me to have this guy. Like, what was happening? You said this girl was going to be on my podcast.
Bring it.
I'm going to bring it home. Don't worry. When Britney Spears covers Bobby Brown's My Prerogative, in the beginning, she says they can take everything away from you, but they can never take away your truth. Okay, that's how she starts it before she starts singing. But the question is, she says, can you handle mine? And she starts singing My Prerogative, right? This is my thing about AI. AI can give you the structure of a great email, but it cannot give you your truth, like your lived experience. AI cannot do. So this is why you'll start to see these generic emails that are like, I don't feel a connection to Oziel at all. Remember I told you in the beginning, people make purchasing decisions based on 2 things. One is what you're selling, something that I want or I need. That's your messaging. And number 2, are you the person that I want to do it with? Do I get a sense of your voice, your vibe, your personality? And ChatGPT can give you a lot of that, but it can't give you that specific lived experience or that story about what happened to you when you were at Target the other day, or, infusing what I call these little slice of life moments in, or these little, I call it your word closet and your accessories closet, like really adding in the things that make it feel like only Oziel could have written this or said this. And so AI can't do that for us, at least not yet. So let's use it for efficiency. Let's use it maybe for that first draft, but you got to know how to go in and then Ozielify it, make it really sound like you. So you still have to apply some of those, the principles of and AI really is applying those kind of principles of copywriting, but giving it that you-ness to it is really, really important if you want to stand out.
Yeah, love it.
And there's ways you can do that. There are specific ways you can do that.
All right, can you give us a couple of tips on how we can get into that? How can we make it a little bit unique? All right,
there's 2 specific ways. Number 1 is your word closet. So you want to think about the words and phrases, but you got to take yourself out of your marketing world. You got to look at how maybe you text people, like a partner, a friend, a family, like what are kind of the words that you use? If you have kids in your life, if there's things your kids say to you, it's likely because you're saying them. So I remember my online curriculum specialist who kind of went through the Copy Confidence Society just to make sure that it was actually doable for people. Her name was Cassie. And when she went through it, she realized that her son would always say to her, shut the front door, because she always said, shut the front door. So now do you understand, if you go to Cassie's first welcome sequence, you download her freebie, which is like how to make sure, the 5 things to make sure your course is actually helpful for your students. You get that first email. Instead of ChatGPT is going to put like, hi, Oziel, thanks for signing up for Cassie's newsletter, right?
Generic.
Instead, it could say, shut the front door, Oziel. Thrilled that you grabbed the 5 steps. And just that gives you an idea of who Cassie is. Do you know what I mean? So that's your word closet. What are your most used? Like I say jazzed a lot.
Yeah.
I say soup to nuts because I'm Italian. I never say from beginning to end. I say from soup to nuts. I say can't even. So how do I infuse that? The other thing is your accessories closet. Making a list of your favorite things. You don't have to know how you'll use them, but like your favorite cookie, your favorite beverage, whatever it is. So you can sub out cliched statements for things that sound like you. So if you wanted to say, Oziel, hey, here's all the great wins that my clients are getting right now. You could say, what's your favorite like beverage? Well, you were saying you're drinking a chamomile tea, but what's like another beverage that you like?
Oh, let's see. Oh my God.
Cocktail, non-cocktail.
I know cocktail. Yeah. Let's go old fashioned. I like a good old fashioned.
Okay, old fashioned, like anything particular, any type of particular like liquor in there, or?
I like Maker's Mark.
Okay, so you could even say, oh yeah, I bet you're wondering about the results of my clients. Well, hold my Maker's Mark old fashioned with a single, ball,
cube,
like big cube, because here come the results. Do you see how that just gives me an essence of who you are? So when people come to my first welcome sequence, it says holy white chocolate covered Oreos at Christmas. Because that's my favorite cookie, is a white chocolate covered Oreo at Christmas.
Okay.
So it says holy white chocolate covered Oreos at Christmas, Oziel. I'm so jazzed you're here. As promised, here's the 50 plus scroll stopping subject lines. So I could use ChatGPT to help me write that, but ChatGPT isn't going to know the Maker's Mark old fashioned, at least not yet. And if they do, well, that might be the end of the world then, anyway, so it doesn't matter. But you know what I'm saying? So that's where you could take what ChatGPT got you 80% of the way there. Yeah. And you go look at, this is one of the very first things I have people do in the society. We create your word closet and your accessories closet. So we can make the email or that piece of copy sound more like you.
I've never heard of it like that, Marisa. That's just, that's the mic drop right there. I think I have never heard of that reframe and thinking about that, all coming down to the message of you still got to bring it. My fellow creator, you still got to bring the energy. You still got to bring your vibe. ChatGPT is not a copy and paste solution. There's ways to be able to leverage it, make it more efficient, amazing assistant, but still be it you. And I love that copy. So I need to use that line. By the way, I'm going to use it. I'm going to give you a shout out. I'm going to put that in my newsletter.
Do it. I always say, I tell people like, well, I'll say like, hold my, Earl Grey tea with a splash of half and half. Like I do stuff like that all the time. And you know the amount of people who will write back
respond. Yeah.
And be like, oh my God, I drink Earl Grey too. That's my favorite tea too. And now we're starting that relationship. So these little moments that help people understand your voice, your vibe is really important to standing out and creating that relatability with your readers.
Landing the plane. This is hot. Marisa Corcoran.com. All right. So last one. All right. I asked all my guests this last question.
Okay.
If there's one creator factor, just one, that every creator should learn and master, what would it be?
One factor. I think I have to say it would be copy. It would be understanding what to say and how to say it so that you're magnetically attracting people. Because if you can do that, you can figure out the other things. But if you don't have a distinct voice and vibe, you're going to get lost in the sea of sameness that's out there.
Marisa, it's been a little slice of heaven. Enjoyed this conversation. It was fun.
It was so fun.
Maybe not so concise as we thought it would, but this is fun. No, I don't want to be done. This is fun. This is a really good conversation. Right? Yeah. So good. So shout out to Gloria for the connection, just the value of just relationships. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. We definitely got to stay in touch. We're going to make sure we link up everything in the show notes. Thanks again, Marisa. I really do appreciate this.